So in this particular company, the example that we're going to use is a microfinance institution, and they aspired to create an automated decisioning model. So basically, customers would apply for a loan and it would be approved immediately based on an algorithmic decisioning model. And going into it, the company did have some very specific objectives. They wanted the product to be affordable, and this meant that this product was going to have to very, very significantly bring down their operating costs because they had a target for how much they were going to charge the clients, and that it would be a viable product to make small loans. Flexible is a bit more abstract, as is impactful. But their objectives around it being scalable, about how big of a portfolio that it could create, and then in this particular case, replicable. This particular company wanted to be able to replicate the same model across its subsidiaries. And so the whole question of how the technology platform and how the product functioned, they said it needs to be deployable in any financial institution, and we want to own the intellectual property and the infrastructure that enables it. So this institution was planning on selling this thing in the market after they perfected it. And finally, they were very clear about saying, look, in this product development initiative, we want measurable results in 12 months. We don't want to invest $5 million in this and find out at the end that it's not delivering. We want enough validation of early stage indicators in 12 months. So this is, although this is still at a high level, you see the elements here that are going to drive many of the next elements that we're going to look at. It's next slide. And so this product hypothesis, I would say that early in the assessment, this is one of the main things to focus on, because again, it shows whether the company is drawing a clear link between the value it wants to create and the product features that is going to create that value. And so in this case, this list says the following product features will drive the performance. A loyalty program features, operational streamlining, incentive-based pricing, graduating clients from group to individual loans. These are very specific things. And so, we're not just talking about automating loan renewal. We are talking about very, very specific features. And the reason that this is so important is the entire implementation plan is going to be based on these things. And if they have not defined these things, they cannot have a structured implementation plan that has the elements in it that you need. And very much related to this, then, are the metrics for defining success. So already here, right at the very beginning, and this would be maybe in the first 10 minutes of a company explaining to you what they're going to do, they've said, this is our concept of the product features that are going to drive value, and this is how we're going to measure that value. And in their case, you see 3 indicators, 2 of which are very clearly related to business value. The portfolio staff ratio, basically an increase in OpEx efficiency, and that portfolio in arrears would remain stable. The loan renewal rate is also very much drives business value, but it is also the one indicator in here that goes to the customer value, the customer value issue, because it is very difficult to measure customer value, and the most useful way of doing it is deciding on a proxy. And this is basically a demand proxy, saying that our customers right now are not renewing their loans very often. If we create this product and customers like it, we are going to use an increase in their loan renewal rate as a proxy for saying that they're satisfied and it's generating value. And then there will be other follow-up qualitative ways of talking with the customers and finding out why they like it. But that first proxy is very important. So at this high level, this already sets the company up for having the detailed plans that we'll discuss next. I just want to repeat that the key element here is, has the company identified the product features, the features that are going to drive the value? Next slide, please. Very careful also about, is there evidence to support the hypothesis? I'm not going to go into these. They had their own evidence for it. They definitely believed the success of nano loans in Africa really showed that customers really wanted convenience, that the speed of being able to renew their loans automatically. They knew very clearly that credit was their core business, and so improvements in there would, they definitely had these very specific, I'm going to call it evidence or foundation of their hypothesis for it. And once again, this is critical because it tells you this very much drives the indicators for success, saying, do you know what success looks like? Next slide. So the business case, this is also very often missing, and I'll just share an experience from when we test drove this methodology with 5 institutions. As most of you probably know, a lot of microfinance, a lot of financial institutions are wanting to automate loan decisioning, especially loan renewals. And the belief that it would generate value was so strong in these institutions that we worked with that they didn't bother to build a business model. They just absolutely believed that this was going to be good for everyone. And that in itself is probably reasonable. A lot of investments get approved because everybody's just convinced that it's blatantly obvious that it's going to create value. But what matters here is how it's going to develop. And so in our experience, what we found was that the companies were so convinced they just thought, as long as customers pay us back, this is going to make us money and customers are going to be happy. And so we built this model with the institutions, but they spent an entire year building the model, launching the pilot, doing proof of concept around a single thing, and that was making sure the customers paid them back. They didn't want the par rate to increase. Well, if you understood how the model was created, it was obvious that the customers were going to pay you back because they tested the model out on their premier clients. And you could have gone to head of business or risk and just say, well, what's your historic par rate? And their good clients always pay them back. That's why they're good clients. They're good clients because they pay them back. It's circular logic. So they just lent money to their best clients, and of course they paid them back. It didn't prove anything about the model, and they spent 12 months doing it. And if they had, in this case, the company had run the business model and seen that very clearly this thing is going to work if it increases commercial officer productivity. It's got to increase the number of loans that our credit officers are dispersing in a month and that they are managing. So in this very high level business model, you can see that they're saying that there are our commercial officers are going to disperse 35 loans instead of 15 loans, and the resulting portfolio is going to be 3 times as big, and our staff and our expense to income ratio is going to drop almost by a third. And that drives the question of the success here is going to be measured on these indicators. What does commercial officer productivity look like? What is the portfolio? What is the income to revenue ratio? Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about business intelligence. Already in the discussion, you would have expected the company to have been presenting historical data on their own portfolios to show the customer behavior that they want to change with the new product. In this case that we're looking at, the company wanted to improve the loan renewal rate and they wanted to drive more new loans. So and I'll show you in a minute how they arrived at that. But the bigger question is whether the product team is actually resourced and tasked with business intelligence. And this, I would say, of all of the capabilities that we have seen, that I would say of the 125 institutions we've looked at, only one of them had a level of business intelligence that really came close to what they would need. This kind of capabilities is found commonly in startup tech companies, but not readily in financial institutions. And so there is a series of questions to ask. Are your product teams responsible for it? What are the insights that you have about your existing customer behavior? What metrics are you using? And then there are more technical discussions about the data warehouse and what data they put it in, and whether that thing is on its own server, and what kind of analytical tools that they use. These are all sort of technical questions that you need to ask and be able to understand what their response. And I'll show you now what it looks like. I'm sorry, next slide. So again, the company had this very clear proposal. We want to automate our loan renewals, and they had this dashboard, and this dashboard is basically showing the loan renewal rate. And a loan renewal rate is how many of our customers renew their loans, basically. And you see the blue line of traditional clients, the loan renewal rate is quite poor and declining. And this particular company showed in one of its subsidiaries where they had implemented this particular initiative before, that there was a very significant increase in the loan renewal rate from a very, very similar kind of product initiative. And so this kind of analytics, it's generated by basically downloading information out of the core banking system and studying patterns in customer behavior. So in this case, it has to do with loan renewals, but you could just as easily be using customer behavior, transactional behavior, deposit behavior, and you can drill into it with high degrees of segmentation. But the key point here is that the company, as it's presenting its plan and saying we're going to build value in this way, at the same time they're showing you this is how it's been historically. Essentially, this is the problem that we are trying to solve, and this is the opportunity that we see to create more value, because this already gives you your metrics for measuring success going forward. Next slide, please. Again, now we're looking right at the charter of the company that we're looking at as a test case, and they were very, very clear about the business intelligence practice. They had a broader business intelligence practice, and so in the product charter that they used to approve this product, this was very clearly laid out. It was clear that the product team would have a data analyst embedded in it, that the team would be responsible for generating business intelligence, that this will consist of a series of libraries, a library of dashboards that track customer behavior, and that the IT gave the mandate to the IT department to populate a data warehouse, extracting data from the core banking system. So right from the very beginning in the product charter, very clear instructions to both the team and the rest of the company. You need to have this basis for business intelligence, and it needs to be this clear. Next